We could have a little tap show. I've been doing ballet at night at our house. It's so much fun. Oh, are we on?
You're on.
I'm on. Hi, I'm Anne Wojcicki. I am the co-founder and CEO of 23andMe, and I am super excited to be hosting my second 23 Minutes of Live with me. So thank you for joining. And today we have a slightly different format where I think questions have been sent in. Is that right? But questions have been sent in, so I will be answering questions.
All right. Yeah, we have a question from Renee on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the story behind 23andMe?
Ooh, what's the story behind 23andMe? So 23andMe, that could go in so many different directions. So the story behind 23andMe is I was originally investing in healthcare companies, and I love healthcare. Like, I think healthcare is the ultimate equalizer of society, and I just find the body incredibly interesting. So that said, I also found that what was in my best interest wasn't necessarily represented by the current system. And 23andMe really came about with this desire for two things. One is that I wanted to take control again. I wanted to own my information. I wanted to be in charge. And I thought that the whole revolution that was coming with the genome, that it should be about the consumer. Like, it was never going to be adopted if we were going to wait for the medical establishment to accept it, that if we really wanted to see this come to fruition, then the consumer had to step up. And how cool would it be for the consumer to be owning their own genetic information and to be benefiting from it right away? And secondly, it was really about, the reality in healthcare is that we know so little about the body. There's tons of these small data sets, but you go to a doctor, you can go to 5 doctors and get 5 different opinions about an illness. And so how do we solve that? You're going to solve that by having more data. And how can we get lots and lots and lots of information about, huge numbers of individuals so that we can actually really better understand how should we live our life? How do you potentially treat a condition? What should we be doing? And so it was really about that we can crowdsource a community of people who want to opt in and participate in research, and that collectively we would all be fueling a whole new generation of scientific discoveries.
Cool. That's great. So a segue into this, that was a good segue into this. So Will on Instagram wants to know, will 23andMe make healthcare better?
Oh, well, we're definitely trying. I think it's really interesting, the trends that are happening right now, where people want to, we're finally taking hold of, we're used to getting everything on our phones instantly, used to posting, getting your restaurant reservations right away. You can call people right away, everything's instantaneous, but healthcare is not like that yet. And so I think that we're trying to really, I think that will change when more and more things are in the control of the customer, of you. And more we're looking to say, how is it that you become your own hub for healthcare? And it's one thing my mom used to always tell me is if you don't take care of yourself, no one will. And so I really believe that if you want to have the best healthcare, you need to be in control. And so one of the things I'm most proud of that we did with 23andMe is that we worked with the FDA to get the direct-to-consumer, authorization. So we're the only company out there that's gone through the FDA process, the only genetic testing that's direct-to-consumer, where we've shown customers can actually get this information on their own, and that you don't have to have a physician or genetic counselor. And I think by doing these simple things, it's going to have a big impact on healthcare, because the more it's just easy for you to get what you want, and that it's relatively, affordable, I think that you can actually start to have a big impact on healthcare. That said, there's a lot more to come.
Awesome. Diana, a physics girl, an influencer.
My physics girl, I love her.
Wants to know, what are some of your favorite stories of people acting on information that they've learned through 23andMe?
So I think that people have 2 really different types of stories that they get from 23andMe, and they get a whole range, but they fall mostly into 2 big buckets. And one is about identity and ancestry and how that influences individuals. And you get a lot of people who are adopted, or they find that they're from a different part of the world that they didn't know, and it changes, like it has a meaningful impact on their identity. I think second is the health side, and in some ways the health, impacting identity is incredibly meaningful, but it's just when you know you potentially save someone's life or you potentially really help prevent an illness. So we get a number of individuals. Actually, one of my favorite stories, this happened really early on, was a parent who called and was like, my child, doesn't like sugar. And actually, I'm not positive we still have this report, but my child doesn't like sugar. And, I tried, like I'm the parent, like I'm dying to take my kid to ice cream and doesn't want ice cream. And lo and behold, it turned out from 23andMe that he learned that he had this fructose intolerance, and never would have speculated that this child had inherited. It's very, it's relatively rare, but like wouldn't have expected that this child had this fructose intolerance. But he did, and that's why he didn't like sugar and didn't like ice cream. And so suddenly these things made sense. And I think that story was particularly meaningful because that was somebody where it was a child where we really potentially prevented long-term consequences. And I think that's why I take a lot of pride, is like what we really want to do with individuals is help them prevent. And I think that the more you can be proactive, the more that you know what's potentially in your future. I'm a huge believer in the gene and environment interaction. And, it's very clear your genes don't mean everything, that there's a world of, choices that you can make. And your health is a sum of what you've done every single day of your life. So what is it that we can do that's going to help you, make the right kinds of choices? And so I really believe we'll be able to help, keep people healthier. And those are the stories that when we can meaningfully improve someone's life like that, it's incredibly, it's why I come to work every day.
Great. Bill from Facebook wants to know, will 23andMe data be used to simulate clinical trials?
Will 23andMe be used to simulate clinical trials? I think that there's a lot. Clinical trials are really interesting, and I think that this gets to some of the heart of the research desires for 23andMe, that we would like to dramatically accelerate the pace of research broadly. And so that started with, can we do genome-wide association studies really quickly? Can we do, all kinds of different analyses on, a large amount of information. So the second thing is helping people connect to clinical trials that make sense for them. And without a doubt, I think that is something that we're going to want to do more and more of, is actually help our customers connect to a clinical study, because it will help move the clinical study faster, but it's also going to help find the right kind of clinical studies for our customers if they want to participate. So I think that there's a whole world, going specifically to the question, is there a way of doing it potentially that is more virtually? And I think that that's where there's a lot of innovation probably to be had. And I think it goes to everything that's happening in healthcare right now. It's sort of that last area that hasn't been completely digitized. So what is it that we could do where you could potentially have remote clinical trials? And there's a few interesting examples underway. And I think that's the kind of thing that we will definitely be exploring more and more.
Awesome. So someone on Instagram wants to know, have you traveled to any of your DNA countries?
Oh, I have. I'm lucky in that I have kind of the opposite story. So before 23andMe, back in 2000, my great-grandmother looks very Mongolian. So my sisters and I were always joke, we're Mongolian, we know we're Mongolian. So I felt insistent that I go to Mongolia. And so in 2000, I quit my job and I took the train across Siberia and I went to Mongolia. And I specifically stopped in the town that my grandmother was from, and I could see very clearly, wow, these people are on the border of, Russia and Mongolia. It's not surprising that we, feel like have some Mongolian ancestry. And then I was really disappointed when I got my genetic results and I'm not Mongolian. And so I feel like I have traveled. I'm of Jewish descent and my father is Polish. So I feel like I've spent time, I used to live briefly in Poland. So I know I spent time in Poland and in Europe, where, a lot of the Ashkenazi Jewish population is from. And Mongolia was lovely, but I have no ancestors there. I'm glad I went.
So this is from Lauren on Facebook. A lot of people have learned that they have a family they didn't know about. Thank you for that. I have multiple people I know who have connected with family members they didn't know about. So how do you feel about people finding their DNA relatives through our service? Have you heard a lot of stories?
So it was one of those things, funny, in the early days, people used to say, oh, maybe one day 23andMe will connect people to family that didn't know each other existed. And it was always seen as like, oh, that's something that could be really, like, that could be amazing if that ever happened. So that happens now all the time. And I think I mentioned this last time. In fact, it happened actually when, for my family, that my mom's brother actually found that that we have a first cousin. And so we were really excited, like we actually have a first cousin. So I know now what it feels like to suddenly discover that you have family members. And, it's one of the things that is interesting as part of this is that we're actually all quite connected, and that, there's a whole new world of discussing what is actually the definition of family. And, there's obviously the community that you grow up with, and then there's the community of people that you're genetically related to. And there's definitely, it's amazing for me how much it is, every single family has some kind of surprise in it. And that's one thing I've discovered is it's not sort of that one-off event. It's probably every single one of us has some kind of story.
So this question also comes from Diana. Are we all related through common ancestors, and has this knowledge changed people's frames of mind in any way?
Yeah, I think that, I think one of the beauty, like again, going to the sort of we are the world mentality is I think that there is a spectacular opportunity for us to show people how we are more connected to each other than we are different. And, we're all 99.5% the same. And so there's really small variations between us. And frankly, it's those small variations that lead to this amazing, variety in the world. And why is it that some people are phenomenal at singing and some people are phenomenal athletes and some people are amazing at math? And you get this spectacular diversity, and that's what we want to celebrate. But that diversity comes from a very small percentage of our DNA. And we are all really incredibly similar. And I think that that's one of the impacts that we're actually starting to see more and more with 23andMe is that people start to realize that we are, we're all quite related. And, there's a small difference between you and any person that you're going to meet on the street.
Mary from Instagram wants to know, or says, I want to work for your company. How can I join your team?
Aw, well, we're hiring. So we have hired a number of people in the last year. So if you want to look at, at jobs, just go to 23andMe. I think it's /jobs. I'm pretty sure. Careers. Oh, sorry, careers. Look at me. I swear I'm in charge.
Jessica on Facebook wants to know, can allergies be detected through DNA?
Oh, can allergies be detected through DNA? There's not a lot. There's some genetic data out there about allergies and DNA, but I would say that that's not something that is really well identified yet. But again, it's an area where I know we do a lot of research on it. We've had a lot of interest in the past from especially the food allergy communities of people who are like severely allergic to different foods. So we definitely are interested in doing research, and we ask questions about it. But there's not a great, it's one thing I always said, I would love to have an allergy predictor for my children, so that instead of having to try out like, oh, are you allergic to strawberries or not, or a medication, that you could just see, are you allergic? So we don't have that yet, but hopefully one day we will.
So going back to the beginning of 23andMe, how does it actually work? How do people get their results?
Oh, how does it work? So 23andMe, you go online, you order 23andMe, you buy it online. We ship a little kit to you. You get a little tube. You spit in the tube. It's actually a decent amount of spit that we need. It takes anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. You send it back in, and it goes to our lab. They extract the DNA, they process it, we run a bunch of informatics on it, and then we upload it into an account and we send you an email that says welcome to you. And once you have your DNA in your account, you get a whole experience. Sometimes people always ask, like, but where's the report? We say there's no report, it's an online experience. And we update you about different, new reports come out, and we keep you updated about interesting facts about your DNA.
Great. We're getting a lot of questions about DNA relatives. Can you talk a little bit about that and the idea that started DNA relatives?
Well, DNA relatives goes to the other question in some ways that we had about finding family members. And I think it's one of those things in society that really came up, that people want to find more connections, that people, like I look at my own family where we had, my grandmother moved here. She had to leave siblings back in Russia. She didn't necessarily know where everyone ended up. So you get a lot of people who don't know their complete stories. And it was always seen as like, oh, there's this great desire for reunification in some capacity, of like knowing, like, where did I come from? Where did the rest of the family go? Families have been separated for all kinds of reasons. So DNA relatives came from this idea that, like, wouldn't that be so cool if we could do a comparison of you against the entire 23andMe community and see if there's any relatives in there? And we really, in those early days, we really didn't necessarily believe that there would be like any matches. And now we see today how many people are finding family members. So like now I log in and there's all the cousins that, my grandmother, she left her siblings in Russia, and we are connected to all of those, the descendants of those siblings now online. So it's pretty amazing how much like the DNA relatives, I think, has, when we launched it, it was utterly, it was transformational. It was like it was such a hypothetical idea, as like whether or not this would actually work. And it's amazing how much we can connect people.
Going off of that, a fun question from Laura on Facebook is, would you please do a show and help families unite?
Oh, do a show and help families unite. I think that's actually a great idea, Laura. I don't think I have time to host it, but there might be other people in the building who could think about it. I think it's a really interesting idea, is to help people who are looking for adoptees or others who are looking for family members, and do that. Like it's definitely something I think we see is a number one reason why people are doing it, is people are looking for family members. So it's a great idea. And I think part of it then ties in the whole health experience. It's one thing that I try to emphasize to people, is that once you start to understand your ancestry and you find family members, like part of the point of doing that is also understanding what your health risks are. And so, ancestry directly ties in with health. And, I met someone the other day who's of Jewish descent, and she didn't know she was of Jewish descent. And she's like, oh, we have this, cancer runs through the family. Should I get tested? And I was like, yeah, that's like, there's definitely higher cancer risks in certain Ashkenazi Jewish populations. So understanding that tie-in between ancestry and health is also an important part.
Wonderful. Rachel on Facebook would like to know, do you ever offer discounts for nonprofits that want to assist at-risk or in-need communities?
Yeah, do we ever offer discounts for at-need communities? We have, we've done partnerships with groups in the past, specifically, like we think about this a lot, is making sure that we are democratizing access and that lots of people can have access to genetic information. And it's been actually really, like I said, when we did it in the past, it was a very positive experience, because a lot of these kids who, they knew their community, it gave them this opportunity to reach out beyond their community and to meet other family members, and really understanding their ancestry was important. So it's something that we don't have a formal program on, but I would say my team will hate it when I say this. I said, just email me. And if you have ideas on it, I love these types of programs. So,
from Robert on Facebook, what kind of coffee do you drink?
Oh, what kind of coffee? So I like strong coffee. I love Phil's. I love Pete's, and dark coffee with cream. I can't stand milk in my coffee. Cream, but dark. Strong. Very strong. There must be genetics around that.
So we've had a lot of comments on Facebook talking about the Celiac Report and thanking us for having it.
Yeah.
So we just want to let you know that there's a lot of kudos for that. People really appreciate it.
You know, I think it's actually one of those things. It's like it was also one of the earliest stories that we had. Is we actually had a story of a woman who came in and she was in her 20s and she worked in human resources at a big company in this area, and she's like, I've been, you know, my entire life I'd had stomach pain. I've been from doctor to doctor. You know, no one could ever do anything with me. I just resolved that like I'm never going to feel well. And she got back her report and saw that she had that variant, and she you know, went to the doctor and she's like, holy cow, like I feel great for the first time. Like I just had to eliminate gluten. And I think that's where I feel like also with a lot of our reports, it's sometimes that it's just these very simple questions that are almost overlooked. And that's where the genetics, I think, helps guide you and helps guide some of the questions by knowing what your risk factors are.
Moving on to the ancestry portion of the product, why aren't British and Irish listed as separate nationalities? Kelly on Facebook wants to know.
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's because it's hard. So I don't want to speak exactly for my ancestry team, but I think it's that if they're not separated, I know that for sure that we're working on it. And secondly, I would think that there's a lot of overlapping DNA. So I'm not the expert for sure on it, but I know it's a problem that they're working on. And usually if it's not split out yet, it means it's just sort of it's a harder problem. So not that it's impossible to solve, it just takes longer.
Donna on Facebook wants to know, will there be more health reports available in the future?
Are there more health reports in the future? So I don't know how long you've been a customer, Donna, but that's part of what we try to do is like continuously update our customers about new advances that have come. So you know, we have been getting different authorizations from the FDA for different types of reports, and it's part of our goal is like to have a comprehensive suite of reports that are going to come back and going to help you, you know, in all aspects of your life. So we are definitely continuously working on new reports.
I'd like to know.
Oh, a question from in the house. Oh my goodness.
What are you going to be for Halloween?
Oh, that's a good question. So I haven't focused as much on myself. You know, I need to think about it. So I've been focusing more on my child. So he talked about being a black hole. And so I actually had my roommate from college. I'm kind of stealing her idea, but I feel like it's okay because it's been 30 years now. But she was a black hole for Halloween, and she wore all black, and she carried a dustbuster. I think it was amazing. I think it was such a good Halloween costume, and it's very easy.
Yeah.
Because I kind of think about Halloween costumes that are low maintenance.
Great. Do we have time for one more?
One more? Tell me more.
How do researchers propose research projects to you? This is from Martha on Facebook.
So researchers propose research projects to us we have a process. It's not a very well publicized process, but it's probably better known in the research world, where people submit proposals to the research team, and the research team a couple times a year gets together and evaluates all the different proposals. And actually we do it probably a lot more. We do it pretty regularly. We evaluate the proposals coming in, and we think about where is it that we're likely to be successful, and what is it that you know, is going to be the most meaningful. So we obviously we have limited resources, so we pick the ones where we think that we can really have the most impact and where there's likely to be a genetic association. We love doing them. We have over 120 publications, I should add. Should read them all.
And that's all the time that we have for now.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining. And we have a number of different topics. It's one thing I will say is we've been thinking through in here is like different topics that we want to go through each time. So if you have suggestions, definitely feel free to send them in. And I have my own ideas, but I've learned that what I think is the right idea is not always the right idea. So let me know what you're interested in, and we'll dig into that. So thank you.